This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, April 22nd. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. Politicians and members of the public from around the world have welcomed the guilty verdicts passed against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the United States for the killing of George Floyd last year. Henry Ridgwell has world reaction.
Relief, anguish, grief. The guilty verdicts passed against George Floyd's murderer, former policeman Derek Chauvin, were welcomed with a potent mix of emotions among the crowd gathered at the scene of his killing in Minneapolis. Emotions shared by millions around the world, watching as US justice unfolded.
As the jury recognized, the evidence in this case was crystal clear. Any other result would have been a travesty of justice. But for countless other victims of African descent and their families, in the United States and throughout the world, the fight for justice goes on.
In Parliament Wednesday, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson offered this tribute.
Last night's verdict in Minneapolis delivered justice for the family and friends of George Floyd, and I know that the thoughts of the whole House remain with them.
George Floyd's murder triggered Black Lives Matter protests around the world. British activist Lawrence Hu helped organise demonstrations in Bristol, England.
I don't feel that there's anything to celebrate at this moment. It just feels that it took a worldwide campaign and cities to burn just for justice to be served. And that's kind of what it feels like. It feels numb a bit today because there's so much excitement about a decision that should have just been the decision.
The French government acknowledged the global significance of the conviction.
Le drame épouvantable qui a frappé Monsieur Floyd.
The terrible tragedy that befell Mr. Floyd provoked an emotion well beyond the borders of the United States. And so it's obvious that this court decision resonates beyond the borders of the United States. And that's what I want to say and salute this morning.
In South Africa, residents of Johannesburg told VOA they welcomed the guilty verdict against Derek Chauvin.
Justice was served, but I don't think it's the right way in doing it, in that there should be different ways in which we can prevent it from happening in the future.
Happy that justice has been served. I think this goes to everyone in any part of the world, in any land.
Justice served first and foremost for George Floyd's family, but also for many people around the world who share their pain and anger. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
The guilty verdict against Derek Chauvin marks a rare conviction against a police officer for actions while on duty. Some legal experts say the case may mark a change in how courts and prosecutors deal with allegations of police misconduct. VOA's Mike O'Sullivan reports.
Joy and relief on the streets of Minneapolis, where George Floyd died last year. Jurors found Floyd, an African-American, died from excessive force at the hands of former officer Derek Chauvin, who was convicted Tuesday of second- and third-degree murder and manslaughter. The deadly confrontation, which was recorded on video, sparked protests around the world.
So many people viewed what happened, and we also, I think, have heard loud and clear the voices of impacted Black and brown communities about the nature of policing in the United States. And I think all of that came together in this verdict.
The evidence was overwhelming, says another law professor.
It's so clearly not what police are trained to do, and it's caught on tape. So yes, this is very, very unusual to have somebody actually convicted, and to be convicted of murder is even more unusual.
In a 2015 case with parallels to this one, a white officer is seen on video shooting a black man, Walter Scott, in the back. The former officer was not convicted of murder after a hung jury led to a mistrial. But he was later sentenced to 20 years in prison after he pled guilty to federal charges of violating Scots civil rights. One factor for the lack of convictions is that prosecutors often have a close working relationship with police, says legal analyst Michele Goodwin.
Prosecutors may be reluctant then to issue charges against police officers or may not act as zealously in those trials. Take note that in Derek Chauvin's trial, it was not handled as these matters typically are by local prosecutors. Instead, this was turned over to the Attorney General.
Another difference in the George Floyd case was the crumbling of the so-called blue wall of silence as a series of police officers testified against Chauvin.
And I think that's huge. If that continues to happen, the culture of policing will change.
These experts say residents of inner-city communities are over-policed, resulting in too many tragedies.
Yet the police are not equipped to deal with most of the problems that these folks in these communities face. And so we need to reimagine policing and rethink it and frankly transform it.
Social change has only come after people speak out, says another analyst.
And demanding and marching and boycotting buses in Montgomery and marching on Washington and doing all manner of resistance to inequality that demands action.
The day the Minneapolis verdicts were announced, another police shooting in Columbus, Ohio. An officer killed a teenage girl who was seen on video wielding a knife. Critics say police need to follow clear, consistent rules for the use of force across the country. Police say their job is dangerous and that they're asked to do too much without necessary resources, sometimes facing distraught people who need psychiatric help. Amid calls for changes in policing, in Minneapolis there is relief that the judicial system has delivered a measure of justice. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News.
Turning to North Central Africa, rebel forces have claimed responsibility for the injuries that killed Chad's president, Idriss Deby. They say they will march on the capital, N'Djamena, to free the people. Neka Chile of Reuters reports.
Rebel forces have set their sights on Chad's capital, N'Djamena, following Monday's killing of the country's president, Idriss Deby, as he visited the front line. It's a move that threatens to bring more turmoil in a country seen as vital to international efforts to combat militants in the Africa Sahel region. Rebel forces from the Front for Change and Concord in Chad, or FACT, poured over the country's northern border last weekend. They say they are now between 125 and 190 miles north of the capital in Kanem region. FACT has claimed responsibility for the battlefield injuries that killed Deby. He was said to have been wounded by gunfire in the village of Mele, near the town of Nnoku. The group was formed in 2016 by dissident military officers and is not linked to the jihadist groups. Deby's son Mohamed Idriss Deby has been named interim president by a transitional council of military officers. According to the council's vice president, the army aims to return Chad to a civilian government and hold elections in 18 months. But FACT has rejected that plan and said it would press on with the offensive. FACT spokesman Kingabe Guazeni.
Le Tchad n'est pas une monarchie.
Chad is not a monarchy.
Il peut y avoir de dévolution dynastique du pouvoir.
There can be no dynastic devolution of power in our country.
Les forces de la résistance nationale du Front.
The national resistance forces from the Front for Change and Concord in Chad
font route en ce moment même vers
are right now on their way towards N'Djamena
avec assurance,
with confidence, but above all with courage and determination.
Et détermination.
Deby had won friends abroad by sending his well-trained army to fight militants, including Boko Haram and groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. His death poses questions about stability in the wider region, as well as in Chad. Before his death, opposition to Deby's rule had been growing, and Chad's military is divided. Authorities imposed a night curfew and closed land and air borders after Deby's death. In N'Djamena on Wednesday, schools and some businesses were open, but many stayed home, and the streets were quiet.
That report by Neka Chile of Reuters. Thursday is World Earth Day. This year's theme is Restore Our Earth. In our coverage, we begin in East Africa, where the impact of climate change is increasingly felt by Africa's small-scale farmers who are battling the ravages of drought, floods, and desert locusts. PULA, a 5-year-old Kenyan insurance technology startup, offers coverage to help them manage the risks of extreme weather. Managing editor Vincent Makori has the details.
When Kenyan farmer Waki Munyalo's lentils crop shrunk by 3/4 last year due to unusually low rainfall, a simple remedy previously unavailable to most African farmers kept her from disaster: an insurance plan.
Insurance is really good because it helps and motivates us, especially when they ask us to grow maize, millet, or green grams. That is our produce, not yours, so we do our best to grow those crops and meet our target.
Munyalo, a 38-year-old mother of 3, had taken out an insurance policy with Kenyan startup PULA, which aims to reach a vast untapped pool of African farmers grappling with new disruptions linked to climate change. She made a claim with her PULA policy and received about $110, close to what she would have earned if her crop had flourished. Farming is the biggest contributor to economic output in many African countries, and across the continent, small-scale farmers are struggling to cope with the impact of climate change on weather patterns and the land on which they depend. But PULA is offering a way to manage. In Kenya alone, 600,000 farmers have taken out policies with PULA. PULA head of operations in Kenya, Daniel Mbuvi.
We are trying to help them by distributing insurance products that will enable them to fight advanced climatic changes, things to do with rainfall, whether it's excess rainfall which causes the flooding and hailstorms, whether it's less rainfall which causes drought and causes plant loss, anything that is a natural calamity that's likely to affect the farmer.
These challenges, along with the spread of mobile phone technology, have created the conditions for PULA's rapid growth. Outside of Kenya, the company has already signed up 4.6 million farmers in Nigeria, Zambia, Ethiopia, and other African countries. Also key to the farm's success is affordability. Farmers can insure their crops with PULA for as little as $5 to $10. To sustain its business while keeping premiums low, PULA uses a mobile phone application to register users, machine learning algorithms to cluster farmers whose land have similar characteristics, and digital tools to assess claims in the field. That's according to PULA CEO Thomas Njero.
The key for us is to, one, as I said, achieve diversification, demonstrate that this is actually something we can do at a global scale, to enable us to reach our goal of reaching at least 30 million farmers in the next 2 to 3 years, spread across the 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Latin America.
In January, PULA raised $6 million in a funding round. Geroge said the company's next targets are Brazil and India. Vincent Makori, VOA News.
Before the pandemic hit, 82% of clinics in the landlocked South African nation of Eswatini lacked hot running water. That has changed in the last 6 months, with the installation of solar-powered water heaters in every single government clinic. This has opened up clean health facilities to cater for up to 10,000 people a day in a nation that has long struggled with building up infrastructure. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Lobamba, Eswatini.
Clean, hot water, the most basic healthcare tool, until now unavailable at most government clinics in impoverished Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Doctors say hand washing, hygiene, and sanitation are key to curbing the spread of illness. Coronavirus has claimed nearly 700 lives in this nation of just over 1 million people. In recent months, a multinational initiative has supplied every public clinic in the country with this precious tool by installing an outdoor solar-powered hand-washing station. VOA asked Eswatini's acting prime minister what seems like an obvious question. Why didn't the government do this before? Why wait for foreign donors? Well, he replied, it's not that easy for a cash-strapped government with limited manufacturing capability and an unreliable electricity supply. When the pandemic hit, he said, Eswatini struggled to acquire basic things like face masks.
One of the priorities was to build the clinics first, because you can't put the stuff here without clinics. As we were building the clinics, as we have 92 of them now, those public health facilities. The stakeholders came in, they wanted to assist, and we gladly accepted that. So everything is prioritized. Health is one of our major priorities, and this is why we thought building the clinics before we get the hot water would be ideal.
This clinic near the capital sees 600 patients a week. Nurse manager Lindiwe Magongo says they also use the hot water station to clean the clinic and brew tea for staff. It also breaks what she described as a stigma around hand washing.
Whenever we wash hands, it means we are going to eat. Going and washing hands all the time, it's an African. We grow up knowing that it's an African to keep on washing hands. Why? There's always that why. Why do you keep on washing your hands?
So how do you break the taboo? How do you break that?
This is going to break it. And COVID-19 has also helped us in breaking that.
A year ago, Australian solar energy entrepreneur Robert Fraser landed in Eswatini for 2 weeks of meetings. Then the pandemic struck, and as he sat in lockdown halfway across the world from home, he thought, why not do something? In that year, his company, with extra funding from the German government, has installed 92 of these $3,500 stations. It's simple, and that's the point.
There was a very obvious need, and we had the products, we had the relationships, the expertise to actually deliver a project that would really make a difference in a very short amount of time, and actually, to be frank, for a reasonably small amount of money.
Fraser stresses that he's not running a charity. They're a for-profit company, and this project has paved the way for a $100 million solar storage project in Eswatini. Health Minister Lizzie Nkosi says hand hygiene is a key weapon against the virus, and one that Eswatini needs while it launches its mass vaccination campaign in coming weeks.
It's not only bringing hot water in places where we would never have dreamt would have hot water, but is reinforcing age-old infection prevention measures that the ministry employs every time, whether we have an outbreak of measles, of diarrhea, an outbreak.
Don't take clean, hot water for granted, she said. In these challenging times, the Eswatini don't. Anita Powell, VOA News, Lubamba, Eswatini.
We'd like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. Our address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a ladies' football club formed to stop teenage pregnancies might soon join Kenya's Professional Women's Soccer League. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. In the United States, 200 million COVID-19 shots have been administered since President Joe Biden took office. The president says he is now looking into sending excess doses abroad. His administration is under pressure to do more to improve global vaccine equity, including supporting a campaign to waive vaccine patents. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has the story.
Around 214 million doses of coronavirus vaccines have been given in the United States, including 200 million since President Joe Biden took office. He wants to push the number further by announcing a tax incentive for businesses providing vaccine-related paid leave to their employees. On the global front, Biden said he is trying to do more.
We're looking at
what is going to be done with some of the vaccines that we are not using. We got to make sure they are safe to be sent, and we hope to be able to be of some help and value to countries around the world.
Last week, 10 Democratic senators urged Biden to support the temporary waiver of TRIPS, trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, proposed by India and South Africa at the World Trade Organization last October. More than 80 WTO members support waiving patents, which would allow countries to make generic versions of the vaccine, but not the European Union or the United States. The White House won't say why.
We're certainly looking at a range of options to help address the global pandemic, but I don't have anything more from here.
The Biden administration is under pressure from pharmaceutical companies who say that patent protection is key to tackling new variants and scaling up production to meet global needs. But in light of aggressive Chinese and Russian vaccine diplomacy, there is a geopolitical cost for Biden not to agree to waive patents.
Right now, the United States is being looked at by countries around the world as a hoarder who is buying up all the vaccine doses that are available and not sharing the technology to enable countries to make their own. In fact, especially middle-income countries aren't asking for shared doses. They're asking for the know-how so that they can make the vaccines for their own populations. And it looks incredibly stingy for the United States to say no.
The U.S. has already contributed $4 billion through COVAX, the UN vaccine sharing mechanism, and launched an initiative with other Quad countries, India, Australia, and Japan, to ramp up vaccines for Southeast Asian countries. But the World Health Organization says there remains a shocking imbalance in global vaccine distribution.
On average, in high-income countries, almost 1 in 4 people has received a vaccine. In low-income countries, it's 1 in more than 500. Let me repeat that. 1 in 4 versus 1 in 500.
As infections continue worldwide, a recap of country data shows only about 930 million vaccine doses have been administered, about 12 shots for every 100 people. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, is home to more than 500,000 internally displaced persons or IDPs. They live in crowded camps with poor sanitation where the coronavirus can spread rapidly. In the holy month of Ramadan, these vulnerable IDP families rely on food aid to survive. Mohamed reports from Mogadishu.
Hassan Mohamed, a father of 6, sits outside a makeshift shelter that he calls home. He and other IDPs in this camp were recently uprooted from their homes in the lower Shabelle region due to clan-related conflict. Their homes were razed, livestock is stolen by militia from rival clans, and they have sought shelter in this camp on the outskirts of Mogadishu.
We're uprooted from our previous settlement, and you can see the condition we're living in. We survive on a handful of rice, and that's the only food we get to break our fast, and it's not enough. Our situation is dire.
Hassan's wife has joined other women to receive donated hygiene products from volunteers. The products are donations from Life Makers, a youth-led initiative that comes together each year during the holy month of Ramadan to help families in need. Life Makers chairperson Mustafa Mukhtar says the goal of the group is to encourage young people to help vulnerable families.
We found the newly displaced people who have no income and can't feed their families. Our kitchen helps them break fast with the food we cook here.
The number of IDPs forced to seek shelter in Mogadishu has increased, not just because of clan conflicts, but also because drought, floods, and locust invasions. Some humanitarian food aid needs remain high, particularly during Ramadan. It's a difficult challenge for the Somali government, especially in the midst of a pandemic.
It's a coincidence the second wave of the coronavirus has come at the start of the holy month of Ramadan. It is a time when needy people really need assistance. Our ministry is doing all it can to help them break their fast during Ramadan.
Like many others, Hassan Mohamed and his family will make it through this holy month on a daily ration of donated cooked rice, barely enough to break their fast. Nonetheless, they remain hopeful other well-wishers will come to their aid. Mohamed Sheikh Noor for VOA News, Mogadishu.
As teenage pregnancies soared during coronavirus lockdowns in Kenya's largest slum, Kibera, teachers and parents looked for a way to reduce the problem. They formed a ladies' football club. The girls became so good at the game, they are now poised to join Kenya's professional women's soccer league. Brenda Mulinya reports from Nairobi.
In the heart of Africa's largest urban slum, Kibera, two amateur Kenyan football soccer teams, the Undugu Queens and the Queens Starlets, are playing a friendly game. The ladies' teams were formed as Kenyan authorities say teenage pregnancies jumped at least 40% during COVID lockdown measures. Founder and coach of the Undugu Queens Club, Laban Ouma, says their goal was to direct the ladies' energy in a healthy way.
The impact that this program gives to the girl is that it is protecting them from the ills within the social structure where we are living. We are living in an environment full of drug and substance abuse. We have early pregnancies too.
Winfred Nyaboke joined the Undugu Queens in late 2020 after her best friend Ruth got pregnant while schools were closed during the pandemic.
This is my good friend. She refused to join us in playing soccer. She decided to play with boys. Right now she is pregnant. I decided to keep myself busy with soccer. I knew it would keep me from falling into the same trap.
The Undugu Queens practice every day of the week and have games every weekend. The players' parents say the demanding schedule is helping to keep their daughters safe and healthy.
We are very thankful when they are playing soccer because that child will not leave the pitch to go and engage in destructive behavior.
The football club also offers a mentorship program for schoolwork as well as access to menstrual health care products. But some players still become pregnant.
I stopped playing soccer after getting pregnant. I couldn't continue during my pregnancy. Now that the baby is a little bit older, I can play again.
The team's hard work appears to be paying off. The Undugu Queens are set to join the Nairobi County Women's Football League after the coronavirus suspension on sports events is lifted. Brenda Mulinya for VOA News, Nairobi.
That's our show for today. Be sure to join Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.